Hey guys, it's Ravenflower again. I think the time has come to share some information. You ready? When I started this path, I want to say it was about January, February, around there. I had, because of my walk, my Christian walk, I had slammed shut some stuff that was very instinctual to me. And so those things are starting to come back now that I've not denied myself. Um, it, my third eye has been opened up, and it's been opened up in the way that I asked it to be opened up. Where, I am handling or seeing things, getting information like I used to, but all coming to me in a way that I can handle it. So in baby steps. So I'm so appreciative to my spirit guides, if they're there. I don't know their names yet. I've asked my ancestors to be my spirit guides, and I've had some come forth, but I'm not sure if they're doing it on the daily. But I just had to share with you. I know I've made some mention of some of the experiences that I had on the trip. But since then, there's been a lot more that's been happening. But I'll go over them briefly again. So it's ghost stories. Ghost stories. While we were in California, we had gone onto this little cruise, 4-day cruise from from Long Beach to Catalina Island, and nothing happened in Catalina Island. But then we went to Ensenada, Mexico. Ensenada was a nice town. It was a nice town. I came across, what was it? Santo Thomas, I think it's Santa Thomas wineries. That was delicious. But while we were in the winery, there was somebody whispering to me that wasn't there. Didn't know what they were saying because I don't speak Spanish. So there was that. Then we'd gone from there over to the casino, the big casino that Al Capone and some others had used. I think Lucy and Desi Arnaz, or Lucille Ball and Desi Arnaz, were married at that casino. It was a gorgeous place. We had been through the big main room. We had gone through again, and we're going through this little hallway to go to the places where they would divvy out the money, or people would cash in their chips and things. Hold on one second. Okay, sorry about that. My husband came in. He's like, "What are you doing?" And I'm doing a video. But everybody always interrupts me. This is how it goes. But anyhow, all right. So we're going through this one hallway where you go, so that there's all these different stations where people cash in their chips, cash in their bank, or whatever, and they would get their money. Well, between the big hall and where where the banks are, you go through and you go down through some other steps and whatnot. And it was happening to my husband first, and then it started happening to me. And for a long time, I couldn't hear things like this. But there was a gentleman who spoke broken English, a spirit, trying to plead with me to help him get out. And I didn't know what to do, because this was probably the first incident that this has happened in, oh my gosh, probably, I'm going to say 15 years, 15, possibly 17 years. And so it was heart-wrenching. I was trying my best to communicate with him, to try to let him know, he needs to go into the light, trying to remember what I was supposed to do, but I totally failed this spirit, and I feel bad about it. But so the entire time we're walking through this corridor, he is begging, and he can't get out of this corridor, and I have a feeling that he was probably underground. There are Al Capone and many others put in tunnels underneath, and to different streets and whatnot. So they would run booze, they would run everything, guns, whatever, underneath that area. And I have a feeling that it was one of maybe the locals that had lived there, worked for him, or the such situation, and all that stuff. My hair is driving me crazy. I'm sorry. I keep fussing with it. I look awful, and I'm sorry. So there's my fluffy fur. See? All right. So that was that situation. Then we go up to the mountain where my dad is at. Oh, wait, no. Let me back up. We went to the Queen Mary. Queen Mary, no joke. There were several incidences that happened there. My daughter, we have a video of this, so you could probably go get a better view, because I give you a tour of the room. And one of my Facebook friends and YouTube friend says, gosh, don't you see all the orbs, going around in your video? And I had been looking at it on my phone because my computer is broke. So I finally fixed it, and I looked at it large scale, and holy shit, there's orbs flying all over the place. And I know that there's going to be people that say that it's dust. It wasn't dust. It's going in different directions all over and like super fast. And then some of them are slow. And we had taken that video probably, I want to say 45 minutes or so before we went to bed. And my daughter had something sit on the edge of her bed, tug at her covers, and stroked her cheek. And she says that it felt icy cold. As this was happening, or around the same time, where I was laying in the bed closest to the door, and the door actually jolted, like wiggled. The handle wiggled, and then it opened, but the chain was real, tight. So it wasn't a super long chain, so the door didn't open very, very wide. It opened just a little bit, and then it slammed shut, like it jolted, like somebody was like checking it or something. Well, after the door closed, I'm like, okay, maybe somebody had thought that it was their room and it wasn't their room. Later on, when we check out, we're just like, oh, I think there was like a mistake that somebody thought, our room was their room, and they may have had a key to get in. And the hotel staff, or the Queen Mary staff, were like, no, you guys, it was your room that was, rented for the night, and then there was like 3 other rooms, but that was down the hall, like 4 rooms away from you. And then there was somebody else that was coming in that morning that was going to be next to us, which we were checking out anyhow. So I don't know what happened, but that sucked, and I was scared to death, and didn't know what to do. And my husband is snoring like super crazy. I'm like, babe, wake up, babe. Something's come trying to get in. He's snore. It was ridiculous. So then the door closes, and I'm just like, oh, can't get my husband up. That sucked. Then something sits at the edge of my bed, and you feel it go down. It's like as if one of my teenagers was sitting on my bed getting ready to ask me for money before I went to work. I mean, honestly, it was pretty heavy. It wasn't just covers or anything. It wasn't. I also felt some tugging of the covers, and it was sort of gentle, but like somebody was kind of not playing with my feet, but sort of tugging around that area. I opened my eye. I'm like, one eye open. What's going on? I don't see anything. And then that was it. I mean, I kind of called out to see if my daughter was awake. She wasn't. She was out. But the next morning, she was telling me about this right before we went to breakfast, and I told her my story, but she told me first what happened to her. And I'm like, holy crap, like no joke. So Queen Mary absolutely is haunted. The pool, ugh, it's creepy. It's really creepy. There's a pool, and it's closed to people to swim in it. So hotel guests are no longer allowed to swim in this pool. But they take the tours through, and that was like oogie gross. I had a hard time with that one. And then there was also a, what do you call it? An isolation deck, which I was not brave enough to even go to. I couldn't go to the isolation room. Wasn't happening. Okay, so next thing that happens to us is up at my dad's house. My grandmother, my dad and my stepmom inherited the house from my late grandmother and grandfather. My grandfather passed away first and left grandma alone, and she was already having health issues. Well, she was having for the very long time. She seemed to be very solitary. She would just go to her room. She wouldn't do much of anything, and people would be out in the living room, out in the dining room, in the kitchen, or whatever. But she would just close herself up, go to bed early, do that kind of thing. Well, she passed away in her room, and I've had several readings, and I've done several videos. I'm sorry, something's in my eye or bothering my eye, or just probably hair, whatever. Anyhow, so I've had several readings where my grandmother has moved on. I know my grandmother has moved on, and my grandmother does communicate with me. And everything's fine with her. She's happy. She's released. She's with my grandfather. Everything's good. She's not up at the ranch. She's not in the canyon. Well, my stepmom wants me to come into her room to show me this dolphin picture, and I get to like a portion right by the bed where all of a sudden I feel a little sick, a little hard to breathe, not cold, but very stuffy. All of a sudden, just real stuffy, and then I'm getting flashes of a movie, the images, if you will. Of what's going on, and I feel this presence by the name of Frederick. Like, how do I just pull out Frederick? It's kind of random. That hasn't happened to me in a very long time. But so this Frederick is passing himself off to my stepmom as my grandma. Like, oh, I'm here to help you. I'm always going to watch over you, that kind of thing. Well, Frederick was watching over her, damn straight he was. But he was sitting there watching her sleep. My stepmom used to be very vibrant, happy, busy, always on the go, and she started to fall into that same pattern that my grandmother had. She's going to bed. She would eat dinner. My dad says that all of a sudden she used to stay up all the time and do this and do that and go places or whatever, and then she just didn't want to go anywhere. Then she was eating dinner at like 6 o'clock, and then she would like get as drunk as fast as she possibly could, drink, chug like 3 glasses of wine, take a shot or whatever, and then try to go to bed. And she's like in bed by 7:30, and then she's sleeping like 12 hours. It's kind of not like her at all. She stopped doing yoga. She stopped doing all of her happy hippie things that she loved. And it seemed to me that this Frederick had done this to my grandmother. This Frederick is now doing it to my stepmom, because now she's the one in that space. So immediately my husband and I joined hands. We cleansed the space. We cleansed ourselves. We cleansed the space. We cleansed the house. We asked my stepmom to say certain words and also tell her, like, she's got to do this. She's the woman of the house. She's the one, the nurturer, the nester of the house. My dad also has to take a part in part of this as well. And we got the spirit out. We had it not... You don't want to speak mean to them, because that's not going to work. Threatening, and throwing holy water around is not going to work. Yeah, sure, smudge, but also you need to encourage with love to move on. And that's what we did. My stepmom cried a little bit afterwards. My husband went off, and there was a big barbecue going on for Father's Day during this time frame. So he went out with the guys, and she kind of latched on to me, and she's like, "Thank you so much. I finally feel I feel like I can breathe. And I said, do you always feel like, has your room always felt like you just heavy, like super heavy on your, on your chest? And she's like, yes. She's like, it's been that way for about a year. And, a year and a half, really, because it was around the time that my grandmother died. And she's like, I've always thought it was your grandmother. I'm like, don't listen to that. Don't listen to this spirit, because he's taking advantage of you. He's trying to take an advantage of you. So look at me trying to talk. He was just sucking the life out of her. He was sucking out all of the energy and feeding off of her. You just felt it. It was disgusting. It was gross when you went in there. So we banished him from the property. And I asked my stepmom how things were going. Is it still feeling clear? Is she still able to breathe? Is she still able to sleep? She says yes. She says everything has been going well. She's been still speaking out loud, establishing her boundaries, establishing her space. And she's still, doing her smudging, still doing her clearing, still doing her cleaning. I taught her about candle magic, and black candles, white candles, different other kind of candles, and sent her some stuff. She's been using those. Things have been going really well. My dad, for a long time, had not been sleeping in the room. He had been sleeping on the futon couch and just watching TV, and then she was in that room all by herself. She would go to bed early, and so he would stay up watching TV, because he wasn't going to go to bed at 7:30, and fall asleep there. So that became his bed. Now he has moved back into the room, and he is sleeping sound. She is sleeping sound. Her schedule has changed. She is regaining, life in her face. When I saw her, I didn't even recognize her. It'd been a while since we had seen each other, but she looked weathered, and I couldn't understand why, because she's a health nut and really into yoga and essential oils and all that stuff, and I'm like, I couldn't understand why she looked so beaten down. Well, now we do. So those are my ghost stories. As more happens, I will let you know. But for the longest time, longest time, I didn't think I was ever going to find my goddess, and that happened. And I was so grateful for it. And then I never thought I was going to have my third eye open up again. Well, here you go. I guess I had to travel to my homeland in order to make it happen. Since then, there's been lots of little signs from my goddesses. I am also seeing things out the corner of my eye. I am starting to hear spirits. Helping them process through some stuff. I'm getting stronger, and I guess as I get stronger, more will come to me. But right now, this is what's happening. So I wanted to share that with you. So I hope that you appreciate it. If you have ghost stories you want to share with me, please do, because I think that we can encourage each other and help each other. What works for you, what doesn't work for you. Maybe stay away from this, maybe try that, whatever. But anyhow, that's it. So I hope you enjoy. Talk to you guys later. Bye.